Okay. Welcome to part 4 of my Legend of Zelda series. I'm going to have a little bit of information about the delay in the description, but whatever. Anyway, in this video we're going to add knockback. At the end of the video, only the player will take knockback, but the code we write will work the same for other entities once the player has a method of actually dealing damage to them. We're also going to handle health and enemy death once we have that. But anyway, first we have to create hitboxes. Hitboxes for both the player and the Stalfos, and we're also going to have to add this for every future entity that we add. So create an area 2D and name it hitbox. Add a child node and add a collision shape 2D. Set the shape to rectangle and set the extents. These are just one more than the extents of the player's collision shape. So 7 and 8 to go with it 6 and 7. It's a little bit larger just so the damage logic doesn't interfere with colliding with walls. So hide that. And then we have to go into our Stalfo scene. Add an area 2D. Rename it hitbox. Collision shape 2D. Set the shape to rectangle shape 2D, and set the Stalfos' extents to 7, 7, and that's going to go with their 6, 6. Okay, hide that again, and save. Let's go to our entity script. We're going to create a new variable called hitstun. We're going to use this variable similarly to move timer in the Stalfo script, except instead of doing something when the timer hits 0, we're going to have stuff happening anytime it isn't 0. So anytime the timer is ticking down, that means the entity is currently in hitstun, which is when it's going to be taking knockback and not be able to take damage. Now we're going to have another variable called knockter, which works the same as movedr, but we're only going to be using it when taking knockback. I didn't want to just use movedr with knockback because it kind of conflicts with some stuff with picking random directions in Stalfos and stuff. It's just easier and it's more readable. And finally, we're going to have a health variable. This doesn't matter right now. We're not actually going to have anything die right now when it reaches 0 health, but we're just going to have it so we don't have to change too much stuff in our damage loop later. So let's make that damage loop. New function, damage loop. First, we're going to have the hitstun timer tick down. So if hitstun is greater than 0, hitstun minus equals 1. That works like the Stalfos timer. Now, this next bit's going to be all the knockback and damage stuff. For body in $hitbox.get overlapping bodies. Okay, so this takes our hitbox node that we just made in the player in Stalfos. It runs get overlapping bodies. This returns a list of every kinematic body or static body that the hitbox is colliding with. And this whole statement is going to run the next code for every body in that list. So, next we're going to have a big if statement. If hitstun is 0 and body get damage is not null and body get type is not type. So, what this is the first part basically only does this if hitstun is 0. So if we're not currently in hitstun. Second part, get damage. Every body that has a damage variable will be able to deal damage to anything as long as it has something called damage in it. And this last part, body get type is not equal to type. That's going to check if the entity is of a certain type, and we're going to have enemy and player. And as long as they're not the same type, this code will work. So first, we're going to set the entity's default type to enemy. This means for every new entity we add, they by default will not take damage with each other, or deal damage to each other. But then we have to give the player its own type. So the player will take damage with all other entities. And then finally, let's just go into Stalfos, and underneath speed, we're just going to give it some damage, make it deal 1 damage. So this will deal 1 damage only to the player, because by default the Stalfos will be of the enemy type, and it's only going to be dealing damage to the player because that's of a player type. Yeah? So, okay. Now this last part's pretty easy. We're going to say health minus equals body dot get damage. This is just going to subtract whatever the damage value is, so the player will take 1 damage from the Stalfos because we just set the damage to 1. Hit stun equals 10. That just sets this timer going so that this won't happen again while the hit stun is ticking down. And where was I? Okay. And this last part, Noctur equals transform.origin minus body.transform.origin. So the transform.origin is just the X and Y location. So it's going to take the entity's X and Y coordinates and subtract the colliding body's X and Y coordinates. That's just going to get the direction between them. It's basically just going to see where one is and then knock it into that direction. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense. Okay, I don't know, whatever. That's it for the damage loop. Let's just give the player and Stalfos our damage loop under their physics processes. And now we just have to fix the movement loop to accommodate for the knockback direction. So, just gonna erase all this. Just have var motion, set that in place. Now, if hit stun is 0, motion equals mover.normalized times speed. This is only going to happen if it's not in knockback. Now else, if it is in knockback, motion equals noctur.normalized times speed times 1.5, I think. Yeah, we'll just have it at that. And then, just like before, move and slide motion and vector 2, 0, 0. So we basically just added in this part right here. If we run the game now, press F5, and we walk into the Stalfos, we'll take knockback. The player still goes into the push animation when you walk into him. We'll fix that probably in the next episode. But yeah, that's that. If we try adding in a couple more Stalfos and run it, once they walk into each other, they'll just change directions as if it was a wall and not take knockback like the player does. But yeah, that's it for this episode. If anything didn't make any sense, please comment, and I'll try to have the next video out with less of a long wait. But thank you so much for watching, and see you later.